of mobile technology, I can now present this thing. Okay. Good morning, my name is Paul Stringer. I'm head of mobile at Equal Experts. Equal Experts is a network of talented, experienced software consultants. We specialize in agile software delivery. One of the areas that we specialize in is mobile engineering and mobile delivery. We work with a number of clients in different industries. Here are two of the main ones that we do work with. And so we see the complexity of mobile delivery every single day. And so I just want to share with you our take on how we manage some of that complexity and some useful things that you can do to help your own mobile delivery. Before we get into it though, I want to just take a moment to mark the occasion of 2017 being 10 years since the launch of the original iPhone. This has been without doubt probably the decade of the iPhone, and then beyond that the smartphone industry. That's kind of why we're all here today. If you look at this in pure numbers, it is astonishing. We forget this, but it is truly astonishing what happened over those 10 years. That is the number of iOS devices that were sold in just 10 years' time. 1.75 billion iOS devices. This you can use as a proxy for the wider smartphone market. Add on top of that the number of Android devices that also got sold. And to bring a little bit of perspective to just what this means, if you put onto that chart the total number of PlayStations that have ever been sold in their 24-year history, it only comes to around 400 million. PlayStations are a cultural phenomenon. Everybody knows PlayStation, and yet it took 24 years to get to 400 million, and the iPhone achieved that in 5 years. That is the scale of the industry which we are involved with. It's an industry which is almost born of itself, another industry of people who analyze and try to understand the impact of this. Last year we were really grateful to have this gentleman, Horace Deju. If you don't know about him, I would definitely go check him out. He understands and analyzes this industry like nobody else. He was one of the first people to call out the impact and change that the iPhone was going to bring. He did the numbers on this. He does a lot of data crunching. He's really into numbers. He does wonderful charts. I definitely recommend you check out his presentations. He figured out that the iPhone was the most successful product of all time. There is not another product that comes close to the success of this one. The way he does is he illustrates this through lots of wonderful charts that he puts together. And this is a chart that is so big that we can't really see the whole thing. We have to kind of move through it. But this is the adoption of smartphones, the penetration in the US market. And you see cumulatively all the sales of everything added together and interesting points along the way. And what you see from that chart is that we've reached about 90% penetration, because that's where the curve tells us we're going within this very, very short frame of time. And that normally it takes industries about 25 years, 50 years sometimes even to get to that kind of level of saturation. When we think about fridge freezers or televisions, even the internet took an awful lot longer than this to get to that. And this has happened in 10 years. So the rate at which these industries are happening is increasing. We zoom out from that again and look at another analyst who looks and studies this market. What we see are these S-curves. S-curves are this recurring pattern that we observe in technological adoption. And there is a pattern that normally when we reach the peak of one S-curve, it normally means there's another one coming. And so in terms of the market, we have reached almost the peak of smartphone adoption. Most people have one now. So what does that mean for us as a technology industry? Well, this is where we are in terms of the market, but technologically we tend to trail this and be continually trying to catch up with this. We already heard about when this came round and everyone was like, you know, this sounds like a crazy idea. Oh no, it's a bit more important than a crazy idea. We should definitely do something in this area. And it all became creation and a huge frenzy around how to deal with this phenomenon that we were seeing. But the questions change as we move beyond that phase to the mass adoption phase, where the challenges and questions we ask ourselves are different, and it all becomes about scaling and deployment and these bigger, more challenging almost issues. The very nature of the market changes, and we need to change to adapt to that. So it brings different technical challenges. At the start of the market, there are no customers to worry about. If you get some customers, it's great. If you don't, it's not a big deal. We now have large-scale operations. We just heard about some of those large-scale operations. You can imagine what it's like building the operations to support the scale of the mobile industry. We now have tons of legacy code around. Right, when we started 10 years ago, there was no code to worry about. We just wrote new code. Writing new code is far easier than writing code that already exists. And suddenly it's gone from being this interesting thing to dabble in, to now an absolutely important business imperative. Business successes are built now on top of getting this aspect of their business right. So it's now way, way more important than it used to be. So there's no pressure there then to get this stuff right. So how are we going to get there? At the end of the day, we acquire this maturity. The people who are really going to bring this maturity and delivery that we need are going to be the app developers. When it comes down to it, they're the guys building the stuff, right? And the team to support them. So I'd like to just take a brief moment to introduce you to an app developer you may have seen in the news recently. If you followed the WWDC announcements last week, you would have seen this guy. This guy is called Yuma Soriento. I think I get that right. He's from Melbourne, Australia. He is 10 years old. He's been coding since he was 6 years old. He now has 5 apps on the App Store, more than I have. He won a scholarship to WWDC, so he was there last week for all the announcements, and he got to meet Tim Cook. He even has his own YouTube channel. You can go check him out, where he teaches people how to code, teaches adults how to code. This is like an awesome achievement, and it's actually testimony to the maturity of the tools that we now have. That now 10-year-olds are able to build these applications. So in terms of managing complexity in mobile, I think we probably just need to wait about 6 years, get these guys through, and this generation through school, and it looks like they've got it figured out for us, right? Fortunately, we can't wait 6 years to get this right. We need to really start that work now. We need to sort of tackle these problems. And most mobile projects are Agile projects, so we're going to look to Agile to kind of solve any of the challenges we have around mobile delivery. But we are currently already in this post-PC world, so we need to get on with it. The post-PC world, as we mentioned, is huge. 2.5 billion users, unprecedented scale, and along with it, unprecedented opportunities. Let's go back to our PlayStation analogy. If you look at the history of PlayStation, the years in which it started to tail off in terms of being a sort of, something that everybody wanted to have was when the iPhone came along. Because that market has now overtaken and consumed what was the console market pretty much in terms of gaming. If you think about games you play, you probably play them on your phone. So the opportunities are huge and the risks are huge as well for getting this right. So our delivery needs to adapt to the changing environment. We are out of the frenzy period. The market is at the mature stage, and we need to be at that mature stage too to be able to effectively deliver, given all the challenges that there are. So what agile adaptations can we make to adjust? There are several things we can do. I've broadly categorized them into these things. You can try methodologies, you can try different things. You can fiddle with your organization. There is lots of stuff about how organizations can be reorganized to try to improve agile delivery. You can check your tools. You can try different tools out to see if that helps. And you also have practices, which is something you can play with. Now, most attempts to sort of improve delivery or any analysis of a project tends to focus on the first 3 of those things. We tend to hear a lot about whether we should be using Scrum, or maybe we should try Kanban, because we've heard that's quite a good thing. Or maybe we could try another thing, which is Scrumban in the middle of that, see if that one works out. That might help a bit. We've actually found that some of these changes do have some impact. You may have arguments about whether you should be using Jira or whether you're using physical boards. Anybody have that argument still? Yeah? I'm physical boards, but Jira, it's fine, we need these tools. So there's all this stuff, but it focuses on methodologies, organization, and tools. And we focus less so much on the practices, which I think is one of the areas we can get the most gain in delivery. Now, this is not new. There is a lot of commentary around this. Robert Martin, who is one of the original co-authors of the Agile Manifesto, called this out. And he said in one of his articles on this, one by one over the years, the practices have been de-emphasized or even stripped away. The loss of practice has diluted and changed the Agile culture. It has been a shift away from excellence towards mediocrity, away from hard realities towards feel-good platitudes. And one of the hard realities of mobile development is it is hard. There's no silver bullet, there's no easy fix. It is just hard stuff to get right, as a lot of software is. In that article, it continues to talk about how practices really are the embodiment of your values. So Agile is a culture guided by a set of values that were put down in the Agile Manifesto. A culture is identifiable and defined by the practices it adopts. And so therefore you come full circle, and the practices are the expression of those values. So you really have to emphasize, again, practices to have any chance of succeeding or improving often your Agile delivery. This is also another guy, Martin Fowler, another one of the co-authors of the manifesto, coined the term for this, and he called it flaccid scrum. It's where you have all the project management sides of this and none of the practices. And the joke is that Scrum is just XP, but without all the technical practices that actually make it work. So he says that any review of a project, you should really look at the practices and see what you're doing in that area, because that's probably the area you can make the most difference. And the reason I bring this up is because I think in mobile, because of the nature of the explosion of that industry in such a short amount of time, there wasn't that much time to get our houses in order. We were rushedly just building stuff to get it onto the market and see what was there. And so most projects in mobile that you see are still trying to move to that maturity phase. And that is where we need to look to practices to facilitate and help us, I think, move to that. So acquiring maturity requires an emphasis back on technical practice. What do those technical practices look like? If you came to a team and looked at their practices, and they'd said a number of these things, you could probably make a very good guess that this team is one that is pretty serious and good at delivering software. Right? The values are seen through these practices. It's the same thing as if you get a builder in. You instantly know the difference between a cowboy builder and a craftsman by the practices they demonstrate. You know from those practices what their values are. And these values reflect the Agile culture. Now, these are not set in stone, and if anybody knows these ones, they'll know that these are the 13 XP practices, which is not coincidental, because actually the Agile Manifesto values were derived from the XP practices. So if you don't have these, hopefully you have something else instead. And if that's better, then you should do a talk and tell us what those things are, because that would be really good to know. But these are the kinds of things that then which we should value and try to observe, at least in our teams. So, I want to just focus for the time that we have left on one area where you can really improve mobile delivery. Continuous integration, which I just highlighted there. It is one of those areas which were notoriously hard to get right on mobile, again because of the complexity of the space and domain we're working in. Why do we want to do continuous integration? Because it will avoid delays later on in your project caused by integration problems. This is just good, sensible stuff to do. And you do it when you care about delivering software frequently and to a high quality. Now, the frenzy period meant that if you wanted to set up a CI system for mobile, these were the concerns you had to deal with. It was not easy. And I can speak from experience of having tried to do a number of these things. It's really hard, right, to get all this stuff to work properly together. And because of the nature of the industry and the newness of it, we didn't have all the tools around to us. So if you did want to build a good system, you were pretty much left trying to build it yourself using whatever current things you had. And some people still try and do this. Now, just one of the things that we sort of now do is that at Equal Experts, we very much don't try to reinvent wheels. If there are good solutions to things, we don't try and do it again. So in mobile, what we found is that whilst previously we might have had to have taken care of some of this, we don't need to anymore because the industry itself has matured, and that if we just adopt some of the stuff that's out there now, we can get immediately a huge increase in our own maturity, in our own delivery. These are just two. If you don't know about these and you have a mobile delivery team, I would encourage you to sort of look at them and see if they might be of use to you. Fastlane is a suite of tools which helps deal with all the tedious tasks that are involved in shipping mobile software. And BuddyBuild is a cloud-hosted platform which literally takes care of all the hardware, all the scaling, all the concurrency problems of dealing with mobile platforms, so you don't have to. And that allows your team to focus on what they're good at, which is development, and which is what you're paying them to do. You don't really want to be paying your teams to reinventing CI systems. That's not really where your business is at. It doesn't want to be an expert in CI systems. It want to be an expert in building your particular software. And by taking that out, using more mature systems for that, and taking advantage of it, you get a lot of stuff for free, which just helps in delivery. This is just some stats from one project of ours which uses BuddyBuild. We get 180 builds out in a week, on a regular week, doing this kind of stuff. And the stat in there, which I think is the most impressive, is that in a week we've sent the build out 153 times to testers to look at. And that could be people all across an organization. And setting up this kind of system is not easy. If we tried to do it ourselves, we would probably never end up with anything other than more than just a poor man's version of this. So where we can, we just use these things out. So, in summary, mobile software is incredibly complex. That is just the reality of it. Everything about it is hard to do it. But it's worth it because the opportunities are ridiculously big. The scale is insane. By using things like continuous integration, we get better delivery. By using platforms and tools that are now out there, we get to improve our own ability to deliver this stuff. And why is this all so important? It's because we need to adapt to this environment that we're now in. Because with S-curves, we always know that when we reach the end of one, there's another one coming. And when then that next one arrives, you want to be really well prepared for it, because if you want to take advantage of it, you need to be. And this next decade is only just getting started. Thank you very much. There's some links there to stuff which we referenced in the show. Of all of them, I would encourage you to check out this video about the original launch of the iPhone and the team that built it. It's a fascinating video. Thank you very much.
Thanks again, Paul, and thanks again to all of our speakers. Paul's going to stick around for a little bit for questions as well. We have a couple of Agile Roundabouts to tell you about. Our July one is with Shop Direct, who are moving and launching a tech hub here in London, like everyone else. I'm sure they'll be hiring. And thanks again to Matt and Sherelle for hosting us, really appreciate it. And then in August, River Island are hosting Agile Roundabout, and they're doing one on transformation. We have TfL and Coots Bank speaking at that one about their transformation journeys with digital and Agile. There are also going to be some JS Roundabout, some JavaScript Roundabout events.
Yes.
TBC.
TBC.
Yeah. TBC. There'll also be evening ones, probably early July sometime, or maybe mid-July. And that will be for everything JavaScript. Might be React heavy, might be Node heavy, we're not sure yet. But we'll be publishing those on the JS Roundabout meetup group. Thank you everybody for coming so early in the morning, really appreciate it. We're going to do half an hour, 40 minutes of networking now, and then get back to your desks for 11 work. Thanks.